All right, here we are, another Tuesday, another webinar. I'm just gonna get all the screens shared, start setting everything up for you guys. Share this. Going to pull up the participant panel here. Let's see. I'll minimize this. All right. Cool. We got a lot of people rolling in. See a lot of familiar names, a lot of people that have been here in many different webinars, actually. See Mark, Manny, Rob, hey Chris, hey Brian, hey Sarah. All right. While people are still rolling in, I'm going to pull up the question and answer panel. So again, a lot of you guys here, it's not your first rodeo. We have 244 people registered for today's webinar. Um, and I'm just going to reiterate, that I do these not for myself. A lot of this stuff I just already know, right? So this is a time for you guys. I want you guys to feel empowered to ask any questions, I want this to be free flowing and, stop me at any point and put your question that you have, maybe something that I just talked about, maybe something that wasn't clear, maybe some nerd lingo that I used about AI that just didn't make sense. Go ahead and throw that in the chats. And as usual, everybody, as a thank you for especially the new faces that we'll see here. Hey, Eric. Um, all of the new faces that we see here, you get a 7 days free in my AI community for construction. Um, if I could spell today. And I'm going to throw that in the chat. Go ahead and click that link. You can get in there and watch every course that I've created so far. Basic prompting is live, advanced prompting is live, custom GPT building is live. I think this is webinar 25. So literally 25 hours of webinar trainings on different topics and news and releases in the AI community and then like tailoring that specifically towards construction. So all of that stuff is accessible in there. And then I post every day almost about some sort of news in some sort of AI world, that I try to make really relevant to, how does it affect construction specifically? How do I see it, getting incorporated into the day-to-day use of the people I talk to every day? And there's a lot of new faces here. So if you don't know me, Zach Kerber, I am the co-founder of Contracts Connected. I am more on the technical side of our co-founding team. My co-founder, Lars Herman, ran a general contractor for 15 years and runs one currently right now as well. A second one, he exited the first one to a ANC organization. And yeah, we're really experimenting with his GC as the guinea pig for some of this more advanced stuff. But then we are building out a fully automated AI back office contract administration and compliance administration software called contractsconnected.com. So that's a little bit about me. I spend almost every day, all day in either sales meetings with general contractors, PMs, estimators, and contract administrators. And I just take those insights and I try to build these webinars just so these webinars are really about giving you the tools and providing knowledge. I don't come to these webinars or even in my trainings in the course and tell you guys how to run a construction company. I just provide you the tools and the knowledge and the ideas so you can go execute on your own. And with that, that allows me to create these webinars in a really agnostic way where a contract administrator can come and get the same amount of value out of this hour as a project manager. So with that, I'm going to be jumping into GPT 5.4 today. I'm going to also do a screen share and kind of show you some stuff in 5.4. I've been switching back and forth between GPT 5.4 this past week and Claude A lot of people are switching over to Claude. I'm doing some really complex stuff in Claude Cowork right now and Claude Code. So I might share with you guys those projects. There's like this whole multi-agent orchestration thing that will send your mind into a rabbit hole when it comes to how this works. And there's some diagrams that I've been working on that I think I'm going to post on LinkedIn this week. So just explaining like how this all works and how you can kind of like see the future shaping around how we will be working with AI. I continue to believe that we will still need collaborative places to work along AI with. There's a lot of co-work stuff going on out there in Claude Code, but I'm finding that the biggest opportunity to integrate into my team or even into Lars's construction team is there does need to be a source of truth between the AI and whatever the AI is doing and the humans, right? And sometimes that looks like chat, but I'm finding that some sort of interface, some sort of software, some sort of like, here's a list of tasks, go execute it, AI. Okay, we executed it. Do you approve it? Yeah, we approve it. Go finish it. So like some sort of flow like that really makes sense. GPT 5.4, like that's a little above the threshold of what we're talking about today, but I'm building like a madman around some of these more autonomous processes because we're building inside Lars's construction company and we're building out a fully fledged, call her, text her, email her, and she will go work in Contracts Connected and she will be your fully autonomous contract administrator. That is what we're building in the background. And Contracts Connected is already kind of like that source of truth around contracts and compliance, and it has AI already incorporated into it. But like, how do we make this like a person on our team? And so that's what we're experimenting with and building around. So I've been like up to like 11 o'clock at night. Just the energy behind it right now is so electric. But 5.4, these are some of my most popular webinars that I do, where I just kind of update you guys on, what is new and then how that could really affect construction with some of the bottlenecks that I see from the people in the AI community that I run and what people say that, I'm struggling with this, or this doesn't work, or I don't get value out of this because this just doesn't know this. Let's get into it. GPT 5.4 came out, I don't know, about a week ago or so. There was like a little bit of a lull in the first month or two of 2026 as far as AI releases go, and like Claude just turned on the after the like just put it into overdrive, and now everybody else is like feeling the pressure to keep releasing. So we saw 5.4 come out. So let's jump into it. So basically, it's just going to be that default new model that you guys are going to be running inside of ChatGPT if you guys are using it. I have surveyed previous webinars in the past, and I found about it was 50-50 between GPT and Claude, and then there was like a little bit over in the Gemini world. But today we're just going to go through, the practical applications, safe applications, what's changing inside of this model, what you're going to notice that's going to be different. This is basically going to be more around, use cases after I kind of shared with you guys, what specifically changed. So this is going to basically give you a tool that's aimed more at these deeper understanding of documents. The key thing here that they're improving is the multi-step project kind of work. So this trend that we're seeing in AI is all about like taking really complex, bigger tasks and breaking them down into subtasks and then working on them in a subtask way and then presenting the result after. So we're continuing to see that trend in uh, uh, GPT. What is this? Hmm. Yeah, 5.4 here. So Um, for some reason, I was like, are we on 4.5? Did I write this wrong? But it's 5.4. It's going to accelerate your guys' drafting. We're going to see how it's going to break these things into those smaller tasks, be able to work on your specs, work on your submittals, work on any safety documentation. It's going to have that better context window and be able to summarize those things more accurately when it's breaking things down into those smaller tasks. I think the overall feeling in construction is optimism around this stuff. But it's still early. It's still, I guess you could say it's a little bit of the Wild West. Not a whole lot of companies that I talk to have any sort of structure around this. Um, they're like, yeah, everybody should be using it, but then they don't have any like, this is how we use it. So I think that that's a gap that we're going to continue to see, maybe a trend this year of this is how we use it. Here is the basic training of it, rather than just saying like, yeah, if you feel comfortable with it, go use it. And we don't care which one you use. Some companies are allowing people to work in whatever they want, but I'm seeing some benefits now as these platforms mature to having your team just double down in um, one system rather than everybody's information and knowledge being fragmented across. Um, so we're going to basically go into these micro workflows and like these simple patterns around governance of how you work with this AI. So there's three major upgrades to 5.4 from 5.3. I don't know when they're going to release the 6 or if they're going to go to a 5.5. That's super unclear at this point. I do expect them to release something built off the back of Atlas. This is just my intuition talking. But Atlas has been requesting access to local files on people's computers and kind of without real reason, but it's just signaling that they realize that they have a gap. Claude has Claude Cowork. Claude is eating up their market share, and I believe that they're going to work off the back of Atlas, which is ChatGPT's web browser. I've done a full webinar training just on like what that web browser does, how it can help you move faster. Claude kind of rebutted with now you have a plugin on Chrome. If you guys are using Claude, get the plugin on Chrome. If you guys are using ChatGPT, at least have one window up in the day that you do your email in Atlas. These basically create little sidebars where you work and it has full context on whatever page you're on. So if you're replying to an email thread, a lot of you guys are copying the email thread, pasting it in ChatGPT, write this, copy, pasting it back in the email thread. This eliminates all that, whether you're in Claude or you're in ChatGPT. You guys basically say, hey, reply to this thread because it's up on your screen. You don't have to even copy it or tell it what thread you're replying to. Reply to this thread, say 1, 2, 3, and it'll write it, and then you just click insert, and it literally pastes it for you. Like you don't even have to do any copy and paste. You just click insert. So that if you guys walk away with anything today, like go do that. This is a game changer. I got my whole team on that. So let's get back out here. So three major upgrades: upfront plan thinking. This is allows mid-response steering for complex tasks, adjusting course while the model works. We have enhanced document and spreadsheet work, which construction operates off documents and spreadsheets, right? So this is going to improve reasoning around that, coding, agentic workflows, and this is going to significantly accelerate data handling. And this is probably where I see the biggest needle moving for the construction industry is around this like document and spreadsheet work. And then they've improved their tool and agent behavior. So native computer use capabilities, improved integration pathways via apps, actions, APIs. So basically all this is saying is like if you guys are using the tools, connectors, that sort of deal, this is going to basically work with that data in a better way. So all of this really stems up to can handle more complex things, can work with more complex documents, and can basically handle those things with your tools that you allow it to use in a better way. So basically, we have some like API costs and context limits here. So API max context for long horizon planning, you're just over 1 million. It's like 1,050,000. And tokens and context, think of it as like characters. So the more characters you have, the more tokens it takes. And the bigger your document, obviously, the more characters, right? Um, Typical ChatGPT plain context is going to vary by subscription level. So what this comes down to is there's a lot of like backlog documentation, a lot of history, a lot of like previous project information. You guys just need to understand that there are limits into how far back it can remember, or how much it can digest all at one time. So this is going to talk a little bit about like how much it can handle. APIs are not what you guys are using in chat. You guys are more in that like middle tier if you're just plain typing in chat. The 1 million tokens is like, hey, I'm building a software application, or I built something in Lovable, or I built something in some other like platform creator that's a vibe coding platform, and I'm using the ChatGPT API to work with my documents because I built this custom little software for my construction company and it works in a very specific way. You can actually do a lot more with a lot more project data that way. Just food for thought. I have previous webinars. You guys can find them on YouTube, or you guys can find them in the AI community. But if you go and vibe code your own platform, you can work with a larger context window underneath the 5.4. So just food for thought there. Claude just released 1 million tokens, so GPT released 1,050,000. Like it's basically table stakes. Like they're both kind of in a line with each other on that. So all right. So I just want to again keep this agnostic. So I'm going to get into a few different like idea sparkers on like, okay, these are the new capabilities. Here's a couple of ideas, and then we're going to basically talk about how to work with it the best and go from there. So project managers, RFIs, long documents now, analyze costs with greater speed and accuracy. Try throwing, if you guys are wanting to test 5.4, try throwing some more complex spreadsheets or ask it to generate more complex spreadsheets. Like that's where I've seen the biggest improvement. Previously, GPT could help you with a lot of really complex formulas. But when it came to actually editing the spreadsheet, when it came to even Gemini, I think isn't the best at editing spreadsheets at the moment. Like it just creates a lot of formulas that just are not how we operate or how we would work. So all this comes down to, again, this is AI that's just generating text at the end of the day. This is still just ChatGPT at the end of the day, right? So this is generative AI. They have not really bridged that gap into cowork, right? So that webinar I did last week about Claude Cowork, this is all about generating those daily reports, managing constraints based off information, creating field punch lists, safety officers being able to analyze again incidents, documentation, basically draft things, create comprehensive tool talks. And then estimators, you can work with more of your previous data from your previous jobs, your previous, estimates that you've created or worked with. And this is going to allow you to analyze those against bigger documents so you can find things like scope gaps or create, negotiation plans if you need to. All right. So basically, like if we're going to work through like a pretend here, you're basically going to work through drafting something like an RFI workflow into these basically little steps here. And the cool thing about 5.4 that you couldn't really do before is in the middle of it working, you can steer it a different direction if you see it going down the wrong direction. Previously, what you would have to do is you'd have to stop it, and then it would have to, stop thinking or stop working, and then you could reprompt it, or you would have to go work into another chat. So here you have, your initial prompt. these are prompting basics, right? I've done webinars on prompting basics. I have the course on advanced prompting basics and beginner prompting basics. But you're going to put your initial prompt in here. Keep in mind that you have a larger context window. You can handle more complex tasks, so you don't have to kind of like break this down as small up front. This should, at 5.4, be able to handle something that's just like, here's a crap ton of, documents and data, and this is what I need to spit out. And here's an example of what I've spit out in the past manually. So if you could follow that, that'd be great. Right. So that's an initial prompt. It sets expectations. It gives context. You're giving the previous documents, and then you're giving it your, instructions on how it should work. It's going to outline its process and structure for drafting the RFI and the options. So it basically comes up with a plan now. And that plan is basically like broken down into a to-do list. So if you think about you got to accomplish a project or something, you're going to say, step one, I need to do this, two, three, four. I have 10 steps to finish this. It's going to do the same thing. At that point, you're going to be able to see its plan inside of ChatGPT. And then you could basically say, like, it's going to get to work on the plan right away. Like it doesn't usually ask you for, it might ask you some follow-up questions, but it's not going to ask you for approval. It's just going to go start getting to work on that. But if you see that plan and you see it start to work and you're like, this isn't going to be right. Like you could say, okay, well, I forgot to give you an example of like what it needs to look like at the end. Here's an example of what it needs to look like at the end. So while it's working, it will spin up like basically a sub agent, that's going to analyze that new input that you just gave it, that new context that you just gave it. And then it will basically then go and readjust the plan to match that new input that you gave it, saying like, here's how I structure my RFIs. Like you're clearly not going to structure it correctly. So I thought giving you a previous example would help. I should have given it to you in the first prompt. My bad, right? So that's something new that you guys did not have before. So this is in an effort to give you a better result sooner. It's going to produce the revised RFI, basically give you any follow-up questions or verification steps. So same thing here, you have daily report to constraints log. So again, this is just working it on more complex documents, more data in these documents, more complex tables, stuff like that. It should be able to handle this at a much better rate for you guys. Um, estimating bid leveling and gap detection. So you can use this now to quickly normalize bids, identify scope and commercial gaps, and generate a recommended shortlist with a negotiation plan from a bid tab data. So this is always going to, the more data that you give it, the more you need to verify. And the way that I've been verifying lately is just a short prompt saying like list out the assumptions that you made here and list out any calculations that you made. Write your calculations out to me, how you got to these answers, and then verify that that formula is actually accurate. So if I'm working with a lot of data and I'm like, man, this needs to be right, I will put that prompt in there and then I can manually kind of check their work. And also like this is going to assume, right? It's going to assume often. And I see Claude make more assumptions more often than ChatGPT. ChatGPT is good about, asking you questions about, what it should do, whereas Claude is just gonna basically go do. It might have some questions about like how do you want the output? That's what I see more often, whereas ChatGPT is gonna ask more questions about, what are the assumptions, what information should I know going into this? So those are just two things to keep in mind. I do think that for construction and some more like, there's a lot of assumptions that it needs to make. And that's oftentimes where I see a lot of people say they're not getting a lot of value out of working with these generative AI platforms, is because it's just spitting out generic garbage, spitting out generic garbage. And that has to do with context. And it has to do with it making assumptions like, well, I'm just going to assume that, this is where the project is and that this is what this guy is kind of like at, and this is where his life is with this project. And I think that's like the biggest and the hardest gap is how do you get all of this project information up to date, live, and accurate? I've worked through a couple scenarios Because if you get those guys that aren't used to giving it all the context it needs, so it doesn't assume things, they're never going to get value out of this. Like they just need a place where they come in and they can chat with an AI as powerful as GPT 5.4 or Opus 4.6. But when they chat, they just want to ask a single sentence question because they're not thinking in prompts. They're not thinking in context. They're not thinking in, example outputs. So somebody else on the team would have had to like say, okay, well, like this is where we store all of our project files. Every morning, update the MD files so it has all the, new emails and new documents and new attachments from this project inside of this file so that when, Bill, the PM that's been with the company for 40 years gets in here and he wants it to work some magic, it can work some magic for him. And that's again where structure and processes come in for companies. That project data is so essential for you guys getting good outputs. And we see it with our documentation at Contracts Connected by us structuring it in Contracts Connected and being that source of truth for contracts, the scope inclusions, the exclusions, even like what COI they have and like when does it expire and all that kind of stuff. By having all that stuff in the structured environment and always there and always up to date, there's no need to like pre-train all this context because if you ask it a question about your project, it knows. It knows the project, it knows the stage, it knows what vendors, have fully executed agreements, it knows what you're drafting, it knows all the inclusions for all the different scopes of work, so it knows what, gaps you might have. That stuff is all automatic because all the context is there. And that's where I'm getting at this like theory of, okay, we have our source of truth. We need AI to be working for us in that source of truth, but we also need humans to get stuff when they need stuff. Because I think on-site personnel for the construction industry isn't going to go anywhere, like at least in the short term, like some of this other document management or like document analysis stuff might happen. All right. So here's another demo here. I don't want to waste our time. I would rather show you guys inside of ChatGPT. But let's talk about the apps actions and the company knowledge section of this. So here we go into the apps. Basically you want to securely connect existing services and data, allowing ChatGPT to reference and take actions. Company knowledge is going to provide that project specific answer with the citations to, those internal sources for business or enterprise users. Custom GPTs and actions, this is going to extend ChatGPT capabilities by enabling calls to external REST APIs. I'll explain that in a second. And then we have like an API tool chain, which offers a broad tool set for, people developing stuff even if you're just vibe coding things like you might be on Lovable, for example. So let's talk apps first. So what I'm finding is, that source of truth is the softwares you guys use today. It's the management systems you guys use today. And connecting that stuff in gives it the right data that it can give you the right answers. Company knowledge is where you guys can spend as a company time saying, okay, this is how we want our RFIs to always look. We want to have this structure. We want to make sure we always include information about this and that and this. So it's always push it out in this structure and we build some really great, we over communicate in our RFIs or whatever it is because we don't have to write them. So company knowledge is, who are you? What is your company name? What type of projects do you build? How does your organization work? What people are on your team? How many PMs do you have? What is the flow for, the back office documentation versus, where do people submit daily reports? All of this company knowledge is basically like an internal brain to your company that you guys can use, and it just kind of operates in the background. This is also any apps or connectors that you have can be considered company knowledge. It's this new thing that ChatGPT rolled out with 5.3. So 5.4, they're just building on this company knowledge a little bit more. Custom GPTs and actions. So expanding ChatGPT capabilities by enabling calls to external REST APIs for specific tasks. This is ChatGPT trying to get into that automated workflow situation like Claude Cowork just did with Claude Cowork like in the past couple months here. So what custom GPTs are, I have a full course on custom GPTs that you can access with that 7-day free trial. I have literally a full like probably 2 or 3 webinars building custom GPTs. Custom GPTs, as a quick refresher, is just a way for you guys to get into ChatGPT, build out a structure. It's basically a pre-prompt. So you would say, hey, this is my, contract risk analysis GPT. And that contract risk analysis GPT has a combination of a system prompt, which is your instructions saying, act as a legal advisor, look for these types of risks, and here are some file examples of things we've redlined. And then you put in these like examples or whatever. So, and now when you make a chat underneath the ChatGPT custom GPT, you basically start out with that context every single time. So you basically say, just analyze this subcontract or analyze this contract, and it would work off all that information it already has, right? So you're not having to write all the look for this, look for that, look for this every single time. It's just baked into it, and you're just kind of executing within that. Pretty cool. But now it has actions built into it. So these are going to be able to be like more scheduled, right? So if you have a custom GPT that might be connected to um, your project management solution, and you want it to write up a report every single morning, and you want that report to work off like a system prompt of here's examples of our morning reports that we've made in the past. Here's what you need to look for. Here's, you need to act as a PM and create executive summary for the team that we can email out every morning, for example. So it's going to be able to work on kind of like this schedule. And what REST API just means is it's just going to be able to connect to those external things like your project management solution. Anytime you guys hear the word integration, like does Procore integrate with Sage? Does Contracts Connected integrate with Procore? Like those integration words, integration is just another word for APIs talking to each other. APIs are how we work when we integrate, and an API is just sending information to another API that's getting it. So you could basically think of it like that. It's basically just allowing you to integrate with external things. And then the integration or API tool chain. This offers a broad tool set for developers, including web search, file search, and computer use. So again, it's like they're trying to inch towards Claude, but they weren't ready yet to fully release whatever they're building out that is going to compete with Claude Cowork. So this is what we got. All right. So again, more inputs here. I filled this up with a lot of like examples, mainly because I put this presentation out to the course or the community members. But you guys can kind of like scroll through it if you're in the community. I just don't want to waste time going through each one of those. So privacy and data controls. This is kind of what the we get asked all the time, or I get asked. I get LinkedIn messages all the time about this kind of thing. So we have enterprise privacy commitments, opt-out controls, encryption, and retention. What's new with 5.4? What's not changed? So we have enterprise privacy commitments. So OpenAI commits to not training models on business data by default. So if you are signing up your team for a team plan, it's now default. Like and this is another reason for you guys to structure things within your organizations, whether you're a leader or whether you're, just working in organizations. If you're telling everybody to go use whatever AI tools they want, and they're not on a paid team plan now, without them setting their settings, you don't know what they're leaking to the internet as far as, hey, I'm just pasting in a bunch of crap, our emails and everything to write responses to my emails. Um, if you guys don't have them on a team plan, you don't have that control, right? So ChatGPT realizes that if a company's using this, they don't want their data shared, so they just by default, don't train off company level plans anymore. So if your team was inside of a company level plan, we wouldn't really have the problem. But then we have opt-out controls. So individual plans still offer that option to disable model training. Encryption data is protected through encryption in transit and at rest. And then we have retention, custom data retention policies are available for those enterprise plans, which again, ChatGPT knows that they don't have a full hold on the enterprise market right now, and they're just doing whatever they can. They know one of the biggest objections is security, data, all that kind of good stuff. So they have been releasing some more things about that. So if you guys aren't fully, using one system within your entire organization, I do want to urge you or encourage you to. My organization, Contracts Connected, we're testing two, but we have two team plans. And that way I can control as a leader at the organization, what's being used, how we're using it, where the data is going, and I can get insights off that. And I can also build collaborative spaces. So I've actually had the two plans on different teams. My developers are working in Claude right now, and my like sales and supports and like that kind of staff, they're working in ChatGPT. I'm thinking about moving everybody to Claude. We'll see. It's kind of like apples and, it's just kind of like not the biggest difference in the world. It's just about how does your brain operate and what's going to be easier for you to use at the end of the day. I do like Claude a little bit better right now, but it's also giving me some trouble sometimes. So ChatGPT seems to be a little less buggy, but Claude gives me a little bit more control over things and gives me more ability to, put previous data or live data from, specific projects where we're at on those projects, and it actually uses it. Whereas ChatGPT, I connect a bunch of things. I can connect our CRM and our project management software, but it doesn't always go grab that information. Like sometimes I have to be like, why didn't you go grab the information, right? Whereas Claude will go grab it. If you guys are structuring things, I think SOPs or custom GPTs, if you're in ChatGPT, will be really useful in the beginning. In custom GPTs, if you create things like an RFI GPT, you create a contract risk analysis GPT, you create, our email response GPT. Everybody can kind of get in there and, work within the same type of framework and get the same type of outputs. And if you do a weekly meeting where you guys as a team get together like on a Friday, and what my team does is we talk about, okay, I was using this, I had to tweak it like twice. And this is why, like it just wasn't putting it out this way. I think this would be beneficial. I've come to this meeting, fully thought out, and I actually worked with the AI model to think about what improvements we could do. This is what we should change in our like prompting system. This is what we should change in our management system. Weeks 3 and 4, is about standardizing, more of the outputs that it's going to generate. So you're just going to work iteratively. In the second month, an idea for you guys would be to enable starting to build out some of that company knowledge if you have that business plan, and basically define, what data do you guys want to connect into this? And if it doesn't have a intuitive, like native, integration that you guys can just switch on, how do you get that data in there? At what cadence does it get in there? How do you, make sure that it's up to date? How do you make sure everybody has relative project data? And then in month 3, I would say if you want to continue down this path, which by this time, if you guys have a roadmap and a plan, you're going to want to start getting more and more and more data in here because it's just going to create you guys as a powerhouse. And if you're the thing about integrating other softwares is software structured data. And that's really what we've been doing for a really long time. We've been using all these tools and all these softwares, and unknowingly, Like software needs to work off data tables. That's how it works. So even if you don't see tables inside of your software, everything is a table in the back end. Usernames and passwords, that's a table. Information about documents, it's like document link, what the document is, who uploaded it, what time it was uploaded. It's a table in the back end. So software operates off back end data infrastructure. And by you now being able to connect in these integrations, you're going to be able to leverage that data into your guys's overall company context. When you have better context, you get better responses from your work with the AI. And then you kind of just want to make sure that you're getting adoption from your team, that they're using these custom GPTs that you've invested into, that you guys have, an onboarding situation for those new team members that come in. They know that you're a ChatGPT company. They know that you're a Claude company. And you're going to walk them through the projects you've set up. You're going to have little processes for the different custom GPTs that you've set up. We have that in our organization. It's like when you come on to our company, you're going to know, hey, you're going to be working here or here. Here's the GPTs that you can use. Here's the like company context, and then you're going to basically just like work with this AI with all of our company knowledge, and you can ask it any questions that you need. Uh, Here we go. We'll have a question here in the Q&A. Iteratively, every 1, 2, or 3 months, there's a new model upgrade in every LLM. How does it affect custom GPTs that we already have set up? So I'll share with you. I'm almost at the end of these slides, but basically, you just go into your custom GPT and you edit it. And remember when you set up that custom GPT that you had full control over what model it was going to use when you were putting in the system prompt. And when you make a custom GPT, they're not set in stone. They're meant to be iterated on. So if you have more project data, if you get feedback from your team in week 2 that it's missing some information every single time, go put it into that system prompt to improve it, right? And along with that is just a simple drop down, and you'll see that it will be defaulted to that original GPT model that you have used. But it's just a simple drop down, select the new GPT model, save it, and then when everybody goes to use it, it will use that. You even have control over whether it uses extended thinking, quick thinking, all of those kinds of deals. I hope that answers your question. But it's very easy to edit it. Just go to your GPT, click edit, and you will be able to configure that. Cool. Yeah, happy to help. All right, let's keep going. All right. Okay, so before I share my screen, I have about 15 minutes here. So I'm going to share my screen, but before I do, if you guys have any questions, please throw them in the Q&A, and then let me pull up ChatGPT here for you guys. Get out of this. Right. So, if you guys, I think you guys can all see this. Yeah. Okay, crap. Okay. So, if you guys are new here, I'm an A-team account. You can see my company knowledge here. And inside company knowledge, we have all of our connectors here, that you guys can now leverage to say, hey, this is all the stuff that you need to pull from our company. But when I come into ChatGPT up at the top left corner, just to refresh, you have 5.4 thinking, thinks longer for better answers, and 5.0 or 5.4 Pro. Fair warning, 5.4 Pro will take a long time to answer you. Like sometimes 10, 15 minutes to answer you. So it's almost comparable to deep research. If you guys haven't used deep research, I would experiment with that too. I use deep research all the time. If I really wanted to go find a lot of sources and I really wanted to analyze that stuff, deep research is a tool that I leverage all the time. But the pro and deep research are getting really close. Deep research will present you with a Word document research article with sites with sources cited, and pro is going to basically give you just as long and in depth of an answer, but it's not going to put it in like a research write-up for you. So just know that if you do pick Pro, it is meant for those really complex tasks. So if you are working with like really crazy amounts of data, a lot of different documents, leverage Pro here. Otherwise, thinking is fine. Thinking won't take very long, but auto will allow it to kind of switch in between these. But if you want to make sure you're in 5.4, the latest and greatest, you can select that and you'll see that you're defaulted into 5.4 thinking here. And you can even go a little bit longer and say, I want extended thinking. So this is just for you guys to know how to control ChatGPT when you're in here. Extended thinking is probably going to be a few minutes for an answer, whereas like normal thinking is going to probably give you an answer in what you're used to. It's going to just start writing right away. Um, as far as the custom GPTs, so this is a custom GPT that I have built with you guys in the past, and you can see that it's all the way back. We did this webinar back in the 5.2 days. And in the 5.2 days, like we need to update that. So you can either switch it right on the fly here, but what I would rather have you do if you already have built out a custom GPT is you go to edit and then configure. And in configure down below, you have a recommended default model. In this default model, you will see that you have all of the options. You can even go back to '03, and you probably just want to pick the 5.4 thinking on this, and then you'll save your changes up at the top right-hand corner. You would click update here, and this would allow your custom GPT to operate. And if you guys are new to the custom GPT world, I have a lot of new faces here. You could see basically, it's going to specialize in reviewing contracts. It's going to produce these summaries, and then you can upload files. Like here's a playbook for how we like to analyze our contracts. We look for this, we look for that, we look for this, and so on. And I think it'll open it. Now it's going to make me download it. So we'll not do that. One new thing with the 5.4 that they've released, like I mentioned in the slides, also is the apps. So this is going to basically come in here and allow you to connect different apps. Once you connect this, it will basically use basically like the company knowledge kind of thing that you've set up. But if you click add here, you can also have it come in and work outside of your company knowledge and work with these apps that they've already pre-configured here. So this is going to basically be able to pull in kind of that public information or like use publicly available kind of automations within these apps. So we have like edit and organize your PDFs. What else do we have in here? All trails, any PDF, convert and edit any PDF. Just trying to see what would be really relevant to you guys. They don't allow for these like so much customization here. Um, yeah, it's just kind of like whoever wanted to build one and got it through uh, the push there. Yeah, nothing with construction. So yeah, just for your guys' information, like you do have access to this. It can go generate things based off apps. It can go generate things based off, and if you just select this and you don't pick a specific app, it'll just try to see what it can do with any app. All right, so coming back here and just talking about this in general. I mean, I can throw some generic prompts in here, but to be honest, guys, like this, I do this webinar. It's a new model, and it's something that I get a lot of attendance on, just like new model updates and what's different. The other thing that has improved here dramatically is spreadsheet work and larger document work, but I don't. I if you guys want my honest opinion, I'm not a salesperson for OpenAI. This was not the release I was hoping for. I was hoping for them to come out with something in competition with Claude Code, or in Claude Cowork, where it's actually going to be going and doing things for you. This is just like an iterative improvement on GPT 5.3. It works a little bit better. It's a little bit smarter. It can handle a little bit more complex things. It can work in spreadsheets a little bit better. But honestly, guys, it's not a life-changing update. Claude and Anthropic, they are pushing really hard. They're updating a bunch of stuff. So if you guys aren't testing that out, at least right now, I would go test out Claude. I know it can feel hard to switch because you're like, ChatGPT knows everything about me. But Claude has actually released a feature that allows you to import all your previous information. I can send that to you guys if you message me on LinkedIn. I can show you how to do that. But you can basically take all of your previous information from ChatGPT, go import it into Claude, so that way you don't lose anything. And it makes switching over easier. And it's kind of like you might feel like you're cheating on one, but you could try it for a day. You could try it for a week. And you can then make the decision knowing that you have the right data points, right? So yeah, I think that that's kind of it. My opinion, it wasn't the update I hoped for. Cool. It can work a little bit better. It can work for a little bit longer on more complex things, and it can do a little bit better spreadsheet work. But at the end of the day, I think Claude's release was much bigger. Um, that would be great if you can share to migrate GPT into Claude artifacts. So it wouldn't migrate into Claude artifacts. What it does is um, import memory. You guys just do this actually. Um, they have this like help doc here. So you'll want to basically export your memory, and this is a prompt. You just copy and paste this prompt here into ChatGPT. And then in Claude, you would open up settings, capabilities, and memory. And then you just click start import and you paste what you have gotten from this into Claude, and then it would basically import all of that stuff for you. So it's actually as simple as like prompting your current one. The Claude artifacts, I don't know if I see like the huge benefit for the artifacts specifically. Artifacts are probably most similar to the custom GPTs, but they're not quite the same. Um, I haven't personally, like, I have built a couple of artifacts, but like, I haven't personally found like a ton of use cases around them for my workflows yet. I've found more use cases around setting up projects within Claude because Claude can operate much better off a lot of project information than ChatGPT does. ChatGPT's projects don't really take into account all the previous project information the way that Claude does. So they work very differently, in my opinion. Although they both call them projects. Claude, just like with the APIs and the apps you connect in, Claude will go read all of that every single time. ChatGPT will not. So when it comes to external data or like data that you've imported, Claude's always going to do a better job with that, at least for now. Okay. Um, if any of you guys are going to the AGC National Convention in Orlando next week, I will have a booth there for Contracts Connected. I will be there at that booth yapping away about AI and construction all day, every day. So if you guys are at AGC Orlando next week, come by, say hi, Contracts Connected booth. If you guys aren't in this AI community yet, I would love to see you guys in there. I keep releasing courses and um, I keep posting every single day about AI news and construction. 7 days free for all you guys that attend this because you just as a thank you for the support. We had a record-breaking 244 people for this webinar today, which is cool. I love the support, but because I will be at AGC Orlando next week, there will be no webinar next week I know it's heartbreaking, and I don't know what you guys can do without me, but I have to go do my day job, contracts connected. Like these webinars are just, for free. They're for funsies. And I enjoy being connected to the community in some way, shape, or form outside of me just working with customers and onboardings and stuff. So this is fun for me, but next week I will be at the convention and I'll be locked up in the booth talking to people. So I won't be able to do this webinar, but the following week we will be on, and I'm building I'm telling you, crazy stuff in Claude Cowork right now. So, um, if I can find enough time between all the traveling and meetings and stuff to continue to work on that, I'll put a presentation together about what I'm working on. I'm building it off the back of Contracts Connected because it's great. We have so much structured data there for documents. It's like this is how you build an AI team member once your data is structured. And Contracts Connected is like that perfect place where I know a lot of things. Um, did you use the plane tickets that AI bought for you, Brian? Actually, AI did research the hotel, present me with the hotels, and they presented me with plane flight options because I actually have to go to Miami for a meeting, and then Monday fly from Miami to Orlando, and then I have to fly from Orlando I'm flying back to Phoenix. Then I had to like travel from Phoenix somewhere on Friday morning. I was like, this is just too much. And it just presented things and it gave me links and I clicked them and I booked the flight. So there you go, Brian. It didn't book it for me, but it close. So yeah, it's kind of fun. I am 50% based in Phoenix and 50% based in Southern California. Most of the Contracts Connected team is in Southern California, but currently I am standing in Phoenix and I'm based here for at least until it gets over 110 degrees. Then I might go back to Southern California for a while. But if you're in the area, we could connect. You know where to find me, like LinkedIn or the AI community. You can message me in there too. So. Yeah, it'll be hot, but I'm going to Florida, Brian. So, um, I'm not gonna have to suffer through that. I'll be back. I think when I get back, it'll be back in like the high 80s or low 90s. So, um, yeah, enjoy the heat if you're in Phoenix. All right. That's it for today, guys. I actually have an onboarding with a customer for contractsconnected.com. Go check us out if you haven't already. That's what I do all day. That's where my passion is. So, thanks for coming, guys. I won't see you next week because of the conference. If you're in Orlando, talk to me there. Otherwise, see you on the next one.